My name is Erica, and I'm 32 years old, standing here in my luxury apartment overlooking downtown Seattle. It's hard to believe that just 8 months ago I was curled up on my old apartment floor sobbing uncontrollably. That was the day I lost everything. My job vanished in the morning, and by evening my fiancé had walked out the door calling me a burden. But what Marcus didn't know is that his betrayal would become my biggest blessing. Before I share how I went from rock bottom to running my own successful business, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever been told you weren't good enough. Trust me, this story will show you that sometimes being rejected is actually being redirected to something far better. Marcus and I had been together for 5 years, and everyone said we were the perfect couple. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming party in Capitol Hill, where he charmed me with his knowledge of wine and his ambitious plans for the future. He was an investment banker at one of Seattle's top firms, always dressed impeccably in his tailored suits, always knowing exactly what to say at social gatherings. Our life together looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Sunday mornings meant browsing Pike Place Market, where we'd pick up fresh flowers and artisanal cheese. Marcus would hold my hand as we walked past the fish throwers, laughing at tourists getting startled by flying salmon. We did couples yoga every Wednesday at a studio in Fremont, though Marcus often complained that my tree pose was better than his, which wounded his competitive nature. Saturday nights were reserved for dinner parties with his colleagues, where I'd play the perfect hostess serving courses I'd spent all day preparing while Marcus entertained with stories from the trading floor. Our June wedding was going to be spectacular. We'd booked Chateau Ste. Michelle Winery in Woodinville with its gorgeous grounds and historic manor. My dress, a silk creation from a boutique in Bellevue, hung in our spare bedroom closet like a promise of forever. Mom would fly up from Florida every few weeks to help with preparations, and we'd spend hours discussing centerpieces, menu tastings, and seating arrangements. She was so proud that her daughter was marrying such a successful man. I worked as a senior marketing manager at Innovate Tech, a startup in South Lake Union that was developing revolutionary project management software. It wasn't investment banking money, but I was proud of what I'd built there. I'd grown the marketing team from 2 people to 12, launched 3 successful product campaigns, and helped increase our user base by 400% in 2 years. The work energized me, made me feel like I was contributing to something meaningful. But Marcus had started making little comments about my career. They came disguised as jokes at first. At dinner parties, he'd laugh and say things like, "Well, not everyone can handle the pressure of real finance. Some people are better suited for the creative stuff, right, honey?" Or when I'd excitedly share news about a successful campaign, he'd pat my hand and say, "That's nice, sweetheart. Though it's not quite the same as managing a $50 million portfolio, is it?" That Tuesday morning started like any other. I kissed Marcus goodbye as he left for his 6:30 a.m. workout, then drove to the office, stopping for my usual oat milk latte at the corner coffee shop. The barista Jamie asked about wedding planning, and I gushed about the string quartet we'd just booked. I had no idea that in 2 hours my entire world would shatter. The company-wide meeting request popped up on everyone's calendar at 9 a.m. Mandatory, all hands. Conference room A. My stomach tightened immediately. In startup world surprise, all hands meetings rarely brought good news. My team members kept catching my eye, seeking reassurance I couldn't give. Our CEO, David, stood at the front of the room, his usual enthusiasm replaced by something heavy and resigned. The investors were pulling funding. The runway we thought would last 18 months had suddenly shortened to 2 weeks. Effective immediately, they were eliminating entire departments to keep core development alive. Marketing was first on the chopping block. "I want you all to know this isn't a reflection of your performance," David said, but his words felt hollow as security boxes appeared on our desks. "You've all been exceptional. The market just isn't ready for what we're building." 12 people, my entire team, packing up their desks in silence. The camaraderie we'd built over late-night launch preparations and celebration drinks evaporated into awkward goodbyes and promises to stay in touch that everyone knew wouldn't be kept. My assistant Sarah was crying quietly as she packed her collection of succulents. Tom, from Content Strategy, just stared at his monitor, unable to process what was happening. I managed to hold it together until I reached my car. Then, sitting in the parking garage, I called Marcus. I needed to hear his voice, needed him to tell me everything would be okay. "Hey, babe, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait?" His tone was clipped, distracted. "Marcus, I just lost my job. They eliminated the entire marketing department." There was a pause. Then, "We'll talk when I get home. I have to go." The line went dead. No words of comfort, no reassurance, just dial tone. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The radio was playing upbeat pop music that felt like mockery. All I wanted was to fall into Marcus's arms and hear him say, "We'd figure this out together. We had savings. We had each other. I'd find something new quickly with my experience." These things happened in the startup world. But when I opened our apartment door at 2 in the afternoon, Marcus was already there. That should have been my first warning sign. He never came home before 7. The second warning was the boxes stacked by the door. His boxes. He was in the bedroom methodically folding his shirts with the same precision he applied to analyzing market trends. He didn't look up when I walked in. "Marcus, what's going on? Why are you home?" He finally raised his eyes to meet mine, and they were cold, calculated, like I was a bad investment he needed to cut loose. "This isn't working anymore, Erica." The words hung in the air between us. I actually laughed at first, thinking this was some kind of sick joke. "What are you talking about, Marcus? I just lost my job. I need you right now." "I know about the layoffs." He returned to folding. "I heard about it this morning through my connections in venture capital. Innovate Tech's implosion has been coming for weeks." My legs felt weak. You knew this was coming, and you didn't warn me. What would have been the point? You couldn't have changed anything." He zipped up his suitcase with brutal efficiency. "Look, Erica, I've been thinking about this for months. We're on different trajectories. I need someone who matches my ambition, my drive. Someone who operates at my level. I operate at your level. I'm a senior marketing manager. I built that entire department." You were a senior marketing manager. Now you're unemployed." He moved past me to grab his shoes from the closet. "And let's be honest, even when you had that job, it wasn't exactly Goldman Sachs, was it?" The cruelty in his voice was something I'd never heard before. Or maybe I had in those little jokes, those subtle digs, but I'd chosen not to recognize it. "Marcus, we're getting married in 4 months. We have a venue, a caterer, my dress. About that." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through it like he was checking stock prices. "I'll need the ring back. It's worth $30,000, and frankly, I need to recoup that investment." Investment. He called our engagement an investment. "Is there someone else?" My voice was barely a whisper. He had the decency to pause for a moment. "Stephanie from our Hong Kong office transferred here last month. She's brilliant. Harvard MBA, youngest VP in the firm's history. She understands the demands of this lifestyle." Stephanie. I'd met her at a company happy hour 3 weeks ago. She'd stood next to Marcus all evening, touching his arm when she laughed, leaning in close to whisper observations about the market. I'd been too secure in our 5-year relationship to feel threatened. "You're leaving me for someone you've known 3 weeks. I'm leaving because you're going to be a burden, Erica. You have no job, no prospects, and honestly, you've been coasting on your little startup success for too long. Stephanie has her own investment portfolio. She owns property in 3 cities. She's going places." I wanted to scream that I was going places too, that one setback didn't define me, but the words wouldn't come. He was already moving toward the door with his boxes. "The lease is in your name, so you can figure that out. I've already transferred my portion of the joint savings to my personal account, minus what I contributed to wedding deposits. You'll need to handle the cancellations." "Marcus, please. Let's talk about this. 5 years has to mean something." He set down his boxes and walked back to me, holding out his hand. "The ring, Erica." With trembling fingers, I pulled off the 2-carat diamond that I'd shown everyone with such pride. The ring I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl. He pocketed it without ceremony. You're doing this because I lost my job. You're abandoning me because I hit one rough patch. I'm doing this because your rough patch showed me who you really are. Someone who can't keep up. Someone who'll drag me down. He picked up his boxes again. Stephanie's waiting in the car. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Stephanie was in the car. She was outside our building in the car waiting for my fiancé to finish destroying my life. After he left, I stood in the doorway for 20 minutes unable to move. Then I called my best friend Lisa. She didn't answer. I tried my college roommate Jennifer. Straight to voicemail. One by one I called the friends I thought would rally around me. Most didn't pick up. The ones who did were awkward distant. I heard about you and Marcus, Jennifer finally texted. I hope you understand we have to support him. He's been really torn up about this decision. Torn up. He'd been planning this. The friend group we'd built over 5 years was choosing him. Of course they were. He had the money, the connections, the social capital. I was just the unemployed ex-girlfriend now. That first night alone, I sat on the kitchen floor eating cereal for dinner because I couldn't bring myself to cook. The apartment felt enormous without his presence, every room echoing with memories. His coffee mug was still in the sink. His running shoes were by the door, forgotten in his efficient exit. I left them there for 3 days before finally throwing them in the trash. The next 3 weeks were the darkest of my life. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic, my heart racing as I remembered I had no job to go to, no fiancé sleeping beside me. The ceiling became too familiar as I spent hours staring at it, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. I sent out 237 resumes. I know the exact number because I kept a spreadsheet color-coded by industry and response status. The rejection emails came in waves, each one a small death. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. The position has been filled internally. We'll keep your resume on file. But mostly there was silence. Endless, deafening silence. My savings account dropped steadily. $2,800 for rent, $300 for the canceled venue deposit they wouldn't refund, $400 for utilities and phone, $600 for the minimum payments on the credit card I'd used for wedding expenses. The numbers became my nightmare, haunting me every time I checked my banking app. Marcus's social media told a different story. There he was at the Space Needle restaurant with Stephanie, her hand displaying a diamond that looked suspiciously familiar. A weekend trip to Vancouver just 3 weeks after he'd left me. Professional photos from a company gala where she wore a red dress that cost more than my monthly rent. The comments from our mutual friends were enthusiastic. Perfect couple. So happy for you both. About time you found someone on your level. I started avoiding grocery stores during peak hours because I couldn't bear running into anyone who might know us. But isolation made everything worse. My parents, calling from their retirement community in Florida, tried to be supportive, but couldn't hide their disappointment. Maybe this is a sign you should come home, Mom suggested during one particularly tearful video call. You could stay with us while you figure things out. Moving back with my parents at 32 in the bedroom, where I dreamed about my future at 16. The thought made me want to disappear entirely. By week 3, my credit card was maxed out. I stood in the grocery store holding a basket with milk bread, eggs, and ramen, watching the cashier run my card for the 3rd time. I'm sorry, ma'am, it's been declined. The line behind me grew longer. A mother with twin toddlers, a construction worker on his lunch break, a teenage couple buying energy drinks, all witnessing my humiliation. Let me put some things back. But before I could move, an elderly woman behind me stepped forward. She was probably 75, wearing a simple navy coat and pearl earrings that looked like they'd been worn every day for decades. Add her groceries to mine, she told the cashier, then turned to me. We've all been there, dear. I wanted to refuse to maintain some shred of dignity, but I had $12 in my checking account and no idea when another interview might materialize. Thank you, I managed to whisper. Don't thank me yet, she said with a strange smile. Come have coffee with me. You look like someone who needs to hear what I have to say. We sat in the store's small cafe area, and she introduced herself as Dorothy Whitman. She had the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter, speak more clearly. "Tell me your story," she said simply. So I did. The whole pathetic tale came pouring out. The job loss, Marcus's betrayal, the friend exodus, the mounting bills, the silence from hundreds of potential employers. I expected pity or platitudes about doors closing and windows opening. Instead, Dorothy laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, my dear girl, you have no idea what just happened to you, do you?" I stared at her, wondering if she was senile. "You just got freed from a prison you didn't even know you were in. That man, those friends, that job, they were all keeping you small. Comfortable maybe, but small. Now you get to find out who Erica really is when she's not trying to fit into someone else's definition of success." She pulled out an elegant business card, though what business a woman her age could be in, I couldn't imagine. "Come to this address tomorrow at noon. Wear your best remaining outfit. And Erica, stop crying over a man who showed you exactly who he was. Believe him." The address Dorothy gave me led to a building in Bellevue that I'd passed 1,000 times without really seeing. 40 stories of glass and steel, the kind of place where Marcus's colleagues would broker million-dollar deals over lunch. I almost turned back 3 times, convinced this was either a cruel joke or some kind of scam targeting desperate women. But I went in wearing the only designer blazer Marcus hadn't liked me to wear because it made me look too aggressive. The elevator took me to the penthouse floor, opening into a reception area that whispered old money and established power. Dorothy was there, but she looked different. The simple navy coat was gone, replaced by a suit that probably cost more than my former monthly salary. She wasn't alone. 7 other women sat around a conference table ranging in age from 30 to 70 each, radiating the kind of confidence that changes the air in a room. "Ladies," Dorothy announced, "this is Erica. She just got dumped by a mediocre man who thought she was beneath him. Perfect candidate for the Phoenix Women." The Phoenix Women. Over the next 2 hours, I learned that Dorothy Whitman wasn't just some kind elderly stranger. She was the former CEO of Whitman Retail Group, a chain of 200 luxury boutiques across the country. She'd built it from nothing after her husband left her for his secretary in 1982, taking their savings and leaving her with 2 kids and a mortgage. Every woman at that table had a similar story. Betrayal that became rocket fuel. Margaret, a 50-year-old tech executive, had been pushed out of the company she co-founded when her business partner and husband decided to sell without her. She now ran a competing firm worth 3 times what her original company sold for. Grace, 35, discovered her fiancé had been sabotaging her promotion opportunities while pretending to support her career. She left him and the company started her own consulting firm, and now that ex-company paid her 5 times her old salary just for her expertise. Younger than me was Priya, 28, whose boyfriend had convinced her to drop out of medical school because he felt threatened by her potential income. She left him, went back to school, and was now completing her residency while running a medical device startup. "We all have our Marcus," Dorothy said. "The person who tried to convince us we were less than we are. The Phoenix Women exist to help women rise from those ashes." She turned to me specifically. "You have skills, Erica. You built a marketing department from nothing. You increased user engagement by 400%. Do you think those abilities disappeared when you lost that job?" "But no one's hiring. No one's hiring employees," Margaret corrected. "Everyone's hiring consultants. The gig economy isn't just for drivers and delivery people anymore. Companies want expertise without commitment. You have expertise." Grace pulled out her laptop. Innovate Tech's competitor Cloudflow is desperately looking for someone to revamp their marketing strategy. They don't want a full-time hire, just someone to design a campaign. 3-month contract, $90,000. $90,000. For 3 months of work. That was more than I'd made in a year at Innovate Tech. But I don't have a consulting company. I don't have a portfolio, website, business cards, and LLC. "You have 48 hours to fix all of that," Dorothy said. "We'll help. Priya handles our legal structures. She'll set up your LLC by tomorrow. Margaret's team will build you a website tonight. Grace will coach you through the pitch, and I'll make the introduction to Cloudflow's CEO. He owes me a favor from when I saved his father's business in '95. Why would you all do this for me? The women exchanged glances, and I saw years of shared understanding pass between them. Because someone did it for us, Dorothy said, and because watching a phoenix rise is one of life's greatest pleasures, but mainly because every woman who succeeds in spite of a Marcus makes the world a little more balanced. I left that meeting with a checklist, a team of advisors, and something I hadn't felt in weeks, hope. That night I worked until 4 a.m. Priya walked me through incorporation documents over video call while eating takeout Chinese food. Margaret's web designer, a brilliant woman named Amy who'd been screwed over by her startup co-founders, built me a professional site that made my experience look like gold. Grace sent me 15 videos on consultancy pricing, project management, and the art of the pitch. Never apologize for your rates, she messaged at 2 a.m. Men with half your experience charge twice as much and sleep fine. The business cards arrived by rush delivery the next morning. Erica Thompson, CEO, Thompson Marketing Solutions. My hands shook as I ran my fingers over the raised lettering. CEO of my own company. It might have been a company of one person operating out of a rapidly emptying apartment, but it was mine. The Cloudflow pitch was scheduled for Thursday. I wore the aggressive blazer again, paired with the confidence I'd borrowed from the Phoenix women until I could rebuild my own. The CEO, James Chen, turned out to be nothing like the tech bros I was used to. He was thoughtful, strategic, and actually listened when I presented my ideas. Innovate Tech's loss, he said after I'd outlined a comprehensive campaign that would target enterprise clients through thought leadership and strategic partnerships. When can you start? Monday. Perfect. We'll have legal send over the contract. $90,000 for 3 months with potential for extension if the campaign performs well. I managed to wait until I reached my car before I screamed with joy. Actually screamed loud enough that a passing jogger looked concerned. Then I called Dorothy. Well done, Phoenix, she said simply. Now the real work begins. 3 months transformed everything. The Cloudflow campaign didn't just perform well, it exceeded every metric we'd set. Their enterprise signups increased by 220%. Their brand recognition scores doubled. James extended my contract immediately and referred me to 3 other CEOs in his network. But success wasn't just about the money flowing into my new business account. It was about discovering who I was when I stopped trying to fit into Marcus's shadow. I woke up excited again. My apartment became a real office with whiteboards covering the living room walls, sticky notes, color-coding different client strategies. I hired my first contractor, then my second, both women I'd found through the Phoenix network who'd been undervalued in their corporate roles. Sarah, my former assistant who'd been laid off with me, became my operations manager. She'd been brilliant all along, but at Innovate Tech she'd been limited to scheduling meetings and organizing files. Now she was negotiating contracts and managing project timelines with a precision that saved me thousands of dollars. Andrea, a graphic designer who'd been told she was too ambitious by her previous employer, created visual campaigns that made my strategies sing. Her work for Cloudflow got noticed by Adobe, who featured it in their newsletter, bringing us 5 new client inquiries in 1 week. We worked from my apartment at first, 3 women building something from nothing, fueled by good coffee and better determination. The Phoenix women checked in regularly, offering advice, connections, and occasionally wine when things got overwhelming. Dorothy became my unofficial mentor, meeting me for lunch every Tuesday at a small French restaurant near her office. She taught me about more than business. Never apologize for success, she said over salade niçoise one afternoon. Men don't. They expect it, celebrate it, leverage it for more. Women apologize, diminish, qualify. Stop that immediately. She was right. I'd been adding qualifiers to every achievement. I was lucky to get Cloudflow. The campaign just happened to resonate. I had help from amazing people. All true, but Marcus never qualified his wins. Neither would I anymore. The transformation went beyond professional. Without Marcus's constant subtle criticisms, I remembered who I actually was. I started wearing colors again instead of the neutral tones he'd preferred. I joined a hiking group that explored the Cascades every weekend, something Marcus had called a waste of time that could be spent networking. My body changed too. The stress weight that had accumulated during months of trying to be perfect fell away. Not from dieting, but from finally feeding myself well instead of surviving on anxiety and takeout. I started running again, not on a treadmill at Marcus's expensive gym, but on the Burke-Gilman Trail at sunrise, watching the city wake up as my feet found their rhythm. 4 months after the breakup, I moved out of the apartment that echoed with failed dreams. The new place was smaller but entirely mine. A condo in Fremont, with a view of the canal where I could watch boats pass while working on proposals. I painted one wall deep teal, a color Marcus would have called unprofessional, and hung art from local female artists found at Pike Place Market. The Phoenix women celebrated with champagne on my roof deck. Margaret brought a housewarming gift that made me cry, a small bronze phoenix sculpture. "For your desk," she said, "to remember that burning down is just the beginning." My client list grew strategically. I wasn't just taking anyone who'd pay anymore. I chose companies whose values aligned with mine, startups led by women or minorities, businesses trying to change their industries rather than just profit from them. The work meant something again. 6 months in, I was invited to speak at Seattle Marketing Summit about building a consultancy from scratch. 300 people in the audience, and I wasn't nervous. I'd found my voice, the one Marcus had slowly silenced with his dismissive comments and superior attitude. "The best thing that ever happened to my career," I told the audience, "was losing my job and my fiancé on the same day. It taught me the difference between security and growth, between comfort and calling." The presentation led to a feature in the Puget Sound Business Journal. "From Fired to Founder: How Erica Thompson Built a 7-Figure Consultancy in 6 Months. 7 figures. I'd crossed that threshold without even realizing it, too busy serving clients to count zeros. Mom flew up to visit the week after the article came out. She stood in my new office space, a proper commercial lease in South Lake Union, with room for the 6 full-time employees I'd hired, and cried. "I was so worried when Marcus left," she admitted. "I thought your life was over. But look at you. You're more yourself than you've ever been." She was right. I was more myself. The self that had been waiting underneath the suitable girlfriend, the accommodating partner, the woman who dimmed her light so someone else could shine. But the universe wasn't done teaching me lessons. 8 months after that horrible Tuesday, I received an invitation that would close the circle in a way I never expected. The Seattle Business Awards invitation arrived on a Thursday morning, printed on thick cream cardstock that felt important between my fingers. Thompson Marketing Solutions had been nominated for Startup of the Year. "We have to go," Sarah insisted, practically bouncing in my office doorway. "This is huge, Erica." Huge. She was right. The awards were Seattle's biggest business event, attended by every major CEO, investor, and entrepreneur in the Pacific Northwest. Marcus's firm would definitely have a table. But that was exactly why I wanted to go. Not to see him, but to be seen. Dorothy insisted on taking me dress shopping. We went to one of her boutiques where a stylist who'd been dressing powerful women for 20 years selected a midnight blue gown that made me look like I owned the world. "Never dress to impress men," the stylist advised while adjusting the hem. "Dress to impress yourself. The rest follows." I invited Thomas Nakamura as my +1. We weren't dating, just friends who'd met through the Phoenix network. He was a tech attorney who'd helped several of my clients with contracts brilliant and funny, without any need to compete or diminish. He looked at my success with admiration, not intimidation. The night of the awards, I almost didn't recognize myself in the mirror. Not because I looked different, but because I looked like the woman I'd always been underneath. Confident, powerful, whole. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel ballroom was transformed into a glittering celebration of Seattle business. Ice sculptures, orchid centerpieces, champagne flowing like the Puget Sound. I'd been to events like this with Marcus always as his +1, always introduced as Marcus's girlfriend, rather than by my own accomplishments. Tonight, people knew my name. Erica Thompson. I've been hoping to meet you. Your Cloudflow campaign was genius. Ms. Thompson, could we schedule a meeting? We're looking for a new marketing strategy. Erica, congratulations on the nomination. Well deserved. I was standing near the bar laughing at something Thomas had said about patent law when I saw him. Marcus in his perfectly tailored tux with Stephanie on his arm in a dress that screamed trying too hard. They were at the Chase Manhattan table surrounded by his colleagues who used to ignore me at parties. He saw me at the exact moment they announced the Startup of the Year category. And the winner is Thompson Marketing Solutions, Erica Thompson. Please come to the stage. The spotlight found me as I walked through the crowd, people clapping and cheering. Sarah was crying at our table. Andrea was filming everything, and Dorothy raised her champagne glass with a smile that said she'd known this would happen all along. On stage, accepting the Crystal Award, I gave a short speech about building something from nothing, about the power of women supporting women, about how sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the beginning of everything. 8 months ago, I lost my job and my relationship on the same day, I told the silent ballroom. I thought my life was over. It turns out, it was just starting. The applause was thunderous. But what I noticed, what I couldn't help but see, was Marcus's face in the crowd. He wasn't clapping. He was staring, his mouth slightly open like he was seeing me for the first time. During the cocktail hour afterward, I was surrounded by well-wishers and potential clients. The mayor stopped by to congratulate me. The CEO of Amazon's Seattle office asked for my card. I was in the middle of discussing a potential partnership when I noticed Stephanie standing alone by the dessert table, watching me with something like fear in her eyes. Thomas had gone to get us drinks when Marcus appeared at my elbow. Erica. His voice was smaller than I remembered. Marcus? Congratulations. That's really something. Thank you. He shifted uncomfortably, looking nothing like the confident banker who'd walked out 8 months ago. You look incredible. I know. Listen, I wanted to say, I've been thinking. I waited, not helping him find his words. Dorothy had taught me the power of silence. I made a mistake, he finally managed. Leaving like that. I was hasty. Stressed from work. You know how it is. I don't actually. Could we maybe get coffee sometime? Talk about things? I almost laughed. Coffee. As if we were old college friends instead of two people who'd planned a life together until he decided I wasn't worth it. Why? Because I miss you. Miss us. Stephanie, she's... He glanced back at his table where she was sitting alone, scrolling through her phone. She's not you. You're right. She's not me. She's someone you chose when you thought I was beneath you. That's not... I never said beneath. Burden. You called me a burden. Said I couldn't keep up with your trajectory. His face flushed. I was wrong. Yes, you were. But not in the way you think. I straightened my shoulders, feeling the weight of the award still in my hand. You were wrong about who I was. But you were right that we weren't meant to be together. I could never have built this while trying to make myself small enough to fit in your shadow. Erica, please. We were together 5 years. That has to count for something. It does. It counts as 5 years I spent learning who I don't want to be. Thomas appeared with our drinks, naturally sliding his arm around my waist in a gesture of easy comfort, not possession. Marcus's eyes tracked the movement. Thompson Marketing Solutions sounds fascinating, Thomas said to Marcus with perfectly pitched professional interest. What field are you in? Investment banking, Marcus managed. Ah, traditional, stable, safe. Thomas smiled. Erica and I were just discussing her expansion into AI-driven marketing strategies. She's always thinking 3 steps ahead. Marcus looked between us, his face cycling through emotions I'd never seen him allow himself before. Regret, envy, loss. I should get back, he said finally. You should. He started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, you deserved better than how I ended things. I deserved better than how you treated me during things too. But yes, Marcus, I did deserve better. And now I have it. I watched him walk back to Stephanie, who immediately started questioning him, her voice carrying just enough for me to hear her insecurity. He sat down heavily, staring at his untouched champagne, while she continued talking at him rather than to him. Dorothy appeared at my side, elegant as ever. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Like closure." "Good, because that's the last time you'll need to think about him. You've got bigger things ahead." She was right. Within 6 months, Thompson Marketing Solutions had offices in Portland and Vancouver. We were a team of 25 all women who'd been underestimated somewhere else. Our client list read like a who's who of innovative companies, all led by people who understood that marketing wasn't just about selling products, but about telling stories that mattered. A year after that terrible Tuesday, I sat in my new office overlooking Elliott Bay, mentoring a young woman named Jessica, who'd just been let go from her agency after refusing to work 100-hour weeks for half the pay of her male colleagues. "I don't know how you did it," she said, tears still fresh on her face. "Starting over from nothing." "But that's the secret," I told her, pushing a box of tissues across my desk. "I didn't start from nothing. I started from everything I'd always been, but was too afraid to show." I shared my story, the whole messy truth of it. The job loss, Marcus's cruelty, the weeks of desperation, Dorothy's intervention, the Phoenix women, the slow climb back to myself. She listened with the hunger of someone looking for proof that there's life after devastation. "He said I was too emotional for business," Jessica confided about her former boss. "That I took things too personally. The ability to feel deeply is not a weakness in business. It's what helps us understand clients, build real relationships, create campaigns that resonate. Never let anyone convince you that caring less makes you more professional." I introduced her to the Phoenix women that Tuesday. Watching Dorothy welcome another woman into our circle, I understood why she'd laughed that day in the grocery store. She'd seen my ending and knew it was actually my beginning. Thompson Marketing Solutions wasn't just a company anymore, it was a launchpad for women who'd been told they weren't enough. We started an internship program for women returning to work after career breaks. We partnered with the local women's shelter to provide job training and placement. Every quarter, we hosted free workshops on starting your own business, and I made sure to tell my story at each one. The person who breaks you doesn't get to define you, I'd say to rooms full of women at various stages of their own resurrections. They just reveal how unbreakable you really are. The business grew beyond what I'd imagined in those desperate weeks of unemployment. We opened a Los Angeles office, then New York. Forbes featured me in their Women to Watch issue. I gave a TED Talk about resilience that went viral, not because my story was unique, but because it was universal. Everyone knew a Marcus. Everyone had been called a burden by someone who should have been their support. But success wasn't measured in magazine features or revenue numbers. It was in the emails from women who'd watched my talk and left their own toxic situations. It was in Sarah buying her first house, Andrea launching her own design studio with my blessing, and first contract, Jessica landing her dream job at a company that valued her completely. 2 years after the breakup, I ran into Marcus's mother at Whole Foods in Redmond. She hugged me immediately, which surprised us both. "I'm so proud of what you've built," she said, holding my hands. "I always knew you were special." "Marcus? Well, he learned a hard lesson." "How is he?" I asked, genuinely curious rather than invested. "Single. Stephanie lasted 3 months after your award ceremony. She left him for someone with a bigger portfolio, if you can believe that." She shook her head. "He's in therapy now, finally dealing with his need to diminish others to feel important. His father did the same thing to me for 40 years. We parted with another hug and promises to have lunch that we both knew we wouldn't keep. Some chapters are meant to close completely. I started dating again eventually. Not desperately, not looking for validation, but openly curious about who I might connect with as my full self. I met David at a conference where we were both speaking him about sustainable technology, me about authentic brand building. He was brilliant without being arrogant, successful without being threatened by my success, supportive without being patronizing. "You're intimidating," he said on our third date, and I braced for the qualifier that would end things. "And I love that about you. I want a partner, not a fan." We've been together for 6 months now. He has a key to my apartment, but we're in no rush to move in together. We're building something based on who we are, not who we think we should be. He celebrates my wins without trying to claim them, supports my struggles without trying to fix them, and never once has suggested I should be smaller, quieter, or less than exactly who I am. The Phoenix women approve, which matters more than I expected. Last month, Dorothy announced she was writing a book about our group, about the power of women rising from betrayal. She asked me to write the foreword. "Why me?" I asked. "You started all of this." "Because you're proof it works. And because your Marcus was so perfectly typical. A mediocre man who tried to convince an exceptional woman she was less than him. Your story is every woman's story." So I wrote it. 3,000 words about how the worst day of my life became my origin story. How being called a burden freed me to become a force. How losing everything I thought I wanted helped me find everything I actually needed. The book comes out next month. Marcus will probably read it. I hope he does. Not for revenge, but because maybe it will help him understand that trying to make someone smaller never makes you bigger. It just reveals your own insecurities. Sometimes I drive past our old apartment building, the place where my old life ended. I don't feel sad anymore. I feel grateful. Grateful that Marcus showed me exactly who he was. Grateful that he left when he did. Grateful that his cruelty was so clear I couldn't make excuses for it. If he'd been kinder about it, if he'd waited until I found another job, if he'd let me down gently, I might have spent years trying to win him back. Instead, his brutal exit forced me to face the truth. I'd been settling for someone who saw my success as competition, my ambition as threat, my potential as problem. The company is worth $8 million now. We employ 73 people across 4 offices. I've spoken at Harvard Business School, rung the opening bell at NASDAQ, been named one of Time's next generation leaders. None of that would have happened if Marcus had stayed. But here's what matters more than any of that: I like who I am. I like waking up excited about what I'm building. I like the women I've surrounded myself with, brilliant phoenixes all. I like that my success creates opportunities for others. I like that my story helps women leave situations that are slowly killing their spirits. Sometimes the person who breaks you accidentally shows you how unbreakable you really are. When someone calls you a burden, they're really telling you that you're too much for them to handle. And that's their limitation, not yours. Marcus gave me the greatest gift of my life when he walked out that door. He gave me the chance to discover that I was never meant to be someone's supporting character. I was always meant to be the lead in my own story. The phoenix doesn't rise despite the ashes. She rises because of them. Every woman who's been told she's not enough should know. You're not too much. They're just too small. And the moment they leave is the moment your real life can finally begin. I want to thank you for listening to my story today. If you've ever been called a burden, told you weren't enough, or made to feel small by someone who should have lifted you up, I want you to know something: your phoenix moment is coming. Sometimes it's disguised as the worst day of your life, but trust me, it's actually your first day of freedom. I'd love to hear your own stories of rising from the ashes in the comments below. What was your phoenix moment? How did you discover your own strength? Please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that their current ending is actually their new beginning. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because next week I'll be sharing the business strategies that took my company from $0 to $8 million in 2 years. Until then, remember, you were never a burden. You were always the blessing. They just couldn't see it. And that's their loss, not yours. Thank you again, and keep rising.